Hi, this is Michelle Morrow from Homeschooling Down Under. And today we're going to do our first Google Hangout, and I've asked Alison McDonald, a speech pathologist, to come and talk to us about reading difficulties, because I know that there's a lot of homeschooling mums out there who have problems with reading and they wonder, has my child got dyslexia or are they just a slow starter? And there's a lot of advice out there, so I thought I'd ask a specialist in the field who also knows about homeschooling, because she used to homeschool her own children, and see what wisdom she can share with us. So I just want to introduce you to Alison McDonald. Hello, Alison.
Hello, thanks for having me with you.
Okay, well, Alison, I just wanted to ask a few questions to get the ball rolling. What is your experience with reading problems?
Well, I guess I assumed in my early years, when I was quite naive, that all children just magically learnt how to read somehow, because that had been my own experience. But it wasn't until I started studying a lot more into the field in a professional sense, and when I educated my own children, that I realised it was such a complex process that requires so much more than just us handing a child a book and hoping that they pick it up. I can share my experience with my daughter. She had all the early skills that were good indicators to show that she was going to be a great reader, but she never actually started reading. She got to the age of 8 and she still wasn't interested in actually picking up a book for herself. We'd been through all the sight words and I'd tried to drum those into her, and there had been no progress until one day she came to me and she says, "Mum, I want to learn about birds." I said, "Well, that's fantastic, darling, but I don't know anything about birds and I'm busy doing some other things at the moment, so if you want to know some information, try the internet, because that's a great place to go." And it was just that one moment that took her to the computer when she looked at that keyboard and went, "Oh my goodness, I need to know how to write and I need to know how to read if I'm going to get the information I want." So for her, she was a late starter, but for her it was all about motivation. As soon as she found the key that was going to get her interested, she took off. That's not the case for all children, I'm well aware of that.
Okay. All right, so if your child is having problems with reading, does that mean, you've obviously said that your daughter didn't have dyslexia, but a lot of people might think that reading problems means my child has dyslexia. So what would you say to that?
Look, dyslexia is a very, very real learning difficulty, and it's very neurologically based. So there's lots of underlying reasons why children are struggling with reading. It's usually because they haven't developed some of those very early foundational skills that they need. So things like being able to process information quickly, being able to hear a word and being able to analyse it for its sounds and its meaning. Lots of early skills that speech pathologists are very involved in developing in children that set them on that right path for learning.
So how would you actually know if your child has dyslexia?
That's a really good question. The real key to seeing whether the child is having a real form of dyslexia, as opposed to just being a bit of a late starter, is to look back in the early history and the development of the child. So looking back to the very early indicators of things such as, when did they start talking? Could you understand what they were saying? Did they use complete sentences? At what age and stage did they start really communicating in language that you could follow and understand? What's their vocabulary like? We can all probably think of children that we know who have a very non-specific vocabulary, so things such as, "I need to go and get that thing that's over there." So a lot of those very general words rather than using specific words. Or children who speak in sentences that are not quite complete, and then as adults, we naturally know what they're saying, so we fill in all those gaps for them. So looking at the very early language signs is a key indicator of whether a child's likely to have some reading and spelling difficulties down the track.
Okay. So maybe if a mum suspects that her child has dyslexia, do you think that she should just wait and see? So just see if the child's a late starter, or should she go and seek help?
Look, I would say if you have any concerns, go and seek help early. Obviously, the earliest we can get involved in developing a program that's specific for the child, the better the outcomes are going to be in the long term. There's so many different aspects of the development that need to be considered. So, you know, it's not just that a child arrives at school in the school learning years of about 5 and we are ready to read. Unless they've got the foundational skills there, it's going to be an absolute struggle and they won't be prepared for what they actually need to do. Their little brains aren't processing the information the way that they need to process it in order to develop that fluent reading and writing and spelling. So definitely early start is the way to go.
Well, I've heard that with dyslexia, the best way to deal with it is by using a phonics program for teaching reading. So if I just started teaching phonics to my child, would that be something that would fix the problem?
Well, phonics programs are fantastic, and I really support the idea of doing a very comprehensive program that's very sequential in what it teaches. That's excellent. But unless the child has those skills to be able to hear and analyse and interpret and manipulate sounds, being able to understand the language concepts of, you know, beginning, middle and end, being able to sequence their thoughts and ideas, then phonics alone won't solve the problem. So it's getting to the root of why the child is slower to start with the reading and the writing. That's the key.
Okay. Well, I know that at school, if my child was at school, that you would pick up the fact that they are having reading problems because the teacher would do something about it. But I was actually surprised to find out that a speech pathologist is even better placed to deal with reading problems. So why is it that speech pathologists are the people to go to for reading problems?
Well, I guess we have a much more comprehensive overview of the child. So we'd be looking right back at the child's very, very early history. And spelling and reading are just another form of communication that just is developing from that spoken language right through to become more literate language and then to go on to that reading and writing side of things. So it's part of that continuum that speech pathologists evolved in from the very, very early stages. So we're looking very closely at all the developmental milestones that need to be reached along the way in order to prepare that child for making the leap from just speaking language to being able to read and write language.
So if I do send my child to a speech pathologist, what sort of things is a speech pathologist going to suggest that I do with my child?
Well, the specific program that they might provide you will depend very much on where your child's strengths lie and where their areas of needs are that need to be developed. But a good program would be looking at the, I guess, visual processing and auditory processing, how they're actually managing to hear and manipulate sounds and how they're able to match the things that they're hearing with what they're able to put down on paper or what they can see on the paper. So again, if your child is a bit slower to start and if you think there might be an underlying learning difficulty there, then a speech pathologist will get you started on the right path that's specific to your child's needs. Okay,
so if I lived in remote Australia, I know you used to live in Ceduna, and how would I find a good speech pathologist? I mean, if I have to travel for hours and hours and hours, are there any online options or anything like that that you could do to see a speech pathologist?
Yes, it's an exciting new field that's developing at the moment. There is scope for more online consultations. If you wanted to talk to myself, even though I'm based in Newcastle, at Newcastle Speech Pathology, we're developing an exciting online consultation program using various internet services that are compatible, to be able to meet with parents, talk to parents, and even do some basic online assessments with the children too.
Oh. Well, that's good to know, because I know that there's lots of homeschool mums out there that would probably much rather see a speech pathologist than go to a school and try to deal with all the school teachers and the additional information that goes with that. And even, I suppose, there's people out there that would like that even though they go to school, because they want to find out. So, all right, well, what's your business called again?
It's Newcastle Speech Pathology, and it's at www.newcastlespeechpathology.com.au.
Okay, well, I'll put the link up so that people can see where they can find you. And I really want to thank you today, Alison, for taking the time to give us this information, and good luck with your new business.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.